can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
Hi, I'm Jim Rossetti, co-host of the Integrity Investing podcast series. And as the song says, I can see clearly now. And as we explore the two entirely different worlds of investing, default versus scientific, you will see clearly which of the two worlds that you're living in right now. Now, this series of podcasts will open your eyes and enable you to enjoy real peace of mind, as well as clearly understand your true purpose for money and to empower and equip you and your family to live the life you love and deserve. And now, here's your host of Integrity Investing, author, entrepreneur, CEO of Veritas Investment Services, certified financial educator, financial coach, and host of this podcast series, Margaret Wittkopp.
Up ahead, we pick up the conversation regarding the differences between the default world and scientific world of financial investing.
Mirage of it, the shame of it, if you would, is that people think that because they get a call from their broker that the guy cares about them. Well, it's not. They're looking to sell you something, and they probably do care. They just don't know what they don't know. They don't know. So then you've got that. So you've got that basic model that most people understand. They heard about it, they've seen it, or they're living in it now. And then you've got this other side, totally different, focused on your education, your empowerment, managing portfolios for you so that you know what they're about.
Yes.
It gives you access to peace of mind around the world of investing, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter how much chaos and cacophony, which has always been with the human race from the day one.
Well, that's where I
Yeah.
have become so. I think I'm pretty well educated, much better than I ever was before that 2-day experience. But
that brings up another thought I want to share, and that is that oftentimes, Jim, people like yourself will say to me, "Where were you, Margaret, 20 years ago?" You know,
Right.
the shame of it is that they don't know about it, and they feel, you know, that's the saddest thing I hear is that, oh my goodness, they've gone through so much pain, and oftentimes they've lost large amounts of money, or to them a lot of money, and can't make up for it. But it's never too late to get on the right track. It's really never too late. If you want peace of mind and you want access to, you know, the science of investing, it is there and it is available for you. But you're not going to find it at your typical brokerage firm / investment firm. You've got to be able to apply these principles. And yeah, that's
one
what
thing
it's
I
about.
have learned, Margaret. I hear people, and I myself have had these fears about living longer than the funds that you have accumulated are going to last you. Well, I run out of money before I run out of days. And the thing
I
is,
hear it quite often.
You get to a certain age and you know you're not going to be able to go out and work anymore. You're not going to be able to sustain a full-time job. You're not going to be able to replace income. And that is what keeps, I think, people up at night and makes them take on some extra piece of worry. You talk about peace of mind, and they don't constantly have that peace of mind. I've seen it in conversations I've had with people. They share that with me. Can we look into that a little bit? You know, and
Absolutely, that is something I hear all the time, Jim. I mean, that is a very common theme when sitting down and speaking with investors, especially as they
Yeah.
near retirement or are uh, in retirement years,
Right.
many times because they've had a poor experience. Maybe they jumped out of the market back in 2007, 2008, or stayed in, didn't recover fully, didn't recover hard, quickly. They, all of that. Um, Again, totally unnecessary. It's a shame that people have to go through, experiences like that because of the way the investment industry is set up. But
Right.
one of the things that I think people need to realize is that, what is retirement? Retirement is being financially independent. I don't
Yeah.
have to go to work anymore. You
Right.
may choose to do something in retire, in your later years.
Yes.
Maybe you have a
Right.
passion for something
Hmm.
and you want to continue to do that work, but it isn't a requirement for
Right.
your sustenance. So that's something I wish more people got a handle on. They get to retirement years and they've been living in this default world and just kind of putting aside something into their 401k, taking a very nonchalant approach to this whole matter and just assuming that somehow magically it's going to be okay. Well,
Yeah.
if you're assuming that, you could be assuming wrong. And that's the real heartache of it when I sit down with people and they haven't paid attention or haven't sought out some reality in this whole realm of money and investing. Because money weaves itself throughout your life, throughout
Right.
everything in your life,
Right. Yeah.
every relationship, every decision. There's very little that money doesn't touch. And I'm not trying to make money the most important thing in your life. It's not, but it is, and it has such a strong impact on your life
Well, if
that
you
you
did an
must pay attention
analysis,
to it.
if and there's been analysis, if you did an analysis on what breaks up marriages more often than anything else, it usually revolves around money.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
Too,
subject. And thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. A very good point.
and not only too little of it, even too much of it can
Yeah,
can break up a
it's
marriage.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's true too. That's
So
true
it's
too.
you're
Sometimes
absolutely
people who
right.
put,
It we like to think the birds and the bees are free, but what's the old song about money? You can leave it to the birds and bees, but I need money. Uh, this world
that's true.
requires, and that's what drives our economy, isn't it? Money, money.
Yeah.
It,
People need goods and services and
sure.
things in this world to survive and to thrive and to enjoy life and
So
for all
money's not a
sorts of
bad
reasons.
thing. It's just that people have to get a handle on what's the true purpose in their life for that money. How does it play
Exactly.
a role in their life?
There's a whole study on purpose and what it does for our lives. People who have purpose, meaning they have something greater than themselves, more important than money itself,
Hmm.
um, that actually live longer and happier lives.
Right,
And
right.
when we know what our purpose is for our money and our life, generally the two go hand in hand, then almost any amount can be enough.
Hmm.
Uh, you do need some resources to exist. You need money to pay for things and to buy food and all of that.
Right,
However,
right,
we often are striving to get more than we actually need. And we get all caught up in this whole vicious cycle of, trying to get more. And it's called survival. I mean, it's built into our DNA as
right.
human beings.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
once you
like
can recognize that, then
when is
you can actually see it
what
and
the
be free
you're
from it.
you hit it right on the head. When is enough enough? Sometimes people can never feel that it's ever enough. and that leaves
Exactly.
a kind of a a driving force in their life. Got to keep making, got to keep making, got to keep making, and that can be stressful way to live too. Don't you believe? Stress.
Well, yes, and
Yeah.
especially in a world where you have no control, you're very vulnerable to the investment industry and all
Yeah.
its machinations. In other words, its deceitfulness, its
Hmm.
the way it pulls on your greed, how it pulls on your fear. Fear is a big motivator. You
Yeah.
know, the and those talk shows on TV and the magazines, they don't exist for your well-being. That's the first thing to get. They don't exist for your well-being. They exist to sell products.
Well, even
And when
just
you
the
realize that, you can ignore some of that chaos and cacophony and
even
feel
even
more.
just even just the headlines that you see. Will the market crash next week? Will the market crash in 60 days? That constant
Yeah.
headline that keeps getting blasted. Now, maybe you get jaded to it after a while. You can kind of, be, but it still it resonates, I think, in our being, the fact that we're hearing it so often.
And
And it,
yet, Jim, let's take a look at the other side of the coin. How much good can be done if
yeah,
you have the resources
right.
and you have a level head about the world of money
Hmm.
and you don't make it your God, but you
Right.
use the gifts and talents that God has given you to create something for the world, and that pays well.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So you make a good living. Now you save something. Now you put it into the market. It makes money. Now you can do with that good into the world if you have a purpose. It's really not
Yeah.
rocket science in that
Yeah.
sense. It's really quite simple to see.
Well,
You
purpose
know,
is
pe-
what leaves people empty when there's no purpose. People kind of lose momentum and drive, and I think that
yeah,
happens in the case of people that retire and don't have a
uh,
hobby or don't have something that they could fall back on. They're so used to showing up at the office working 40 to 60, 80 hours a week, and now they've got
yeah.
no place to go. So,
Well,
c
you hit on a whole new subject here,
yeah,
and a whole new dimension of this world of financial planning and uh,
mhm,
guiding and coaching people into retirement, through retirement. And yeah, those are subjects that we try to talk to people about and help them to develop themselves
right,
or find what's most important to them. That's all part of that 2 day seminar as well, is that we
right,
take some time to think about those things and come together as a couple or even as an individual to, you know, decide for yourself what you want your life to mean. Then you can make decisions about your financial life.
right,
It all comes clear. You're not driven by fear and greed anymore. You're driven by doing the right thing. You're
mhm.
driven by what's practical and what is proven to bear out. It's
Yeah, and
about returns, but the returns will come to you if you're disciplined.
and most of us, when we hit the retirement years, we do not want our standard of living to take a severe dip because of money being an issue. We can't
That's
live the
right.
same way we lived a month ago in retirement.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
There's lots to think about in that part of this world, and those
yeah.
create wonderful conversations. One of the things that I enjoy very much is the financial planning part of it. When I'm sitting with a couple that is coachable
Hmm.
and really wants to, you know, get it right, so to speak, and they're open and they'll share with us, all kinds of things. And oftentimes my clients who've been with me for 10, 20, 30 years have um, come to me when whether it has to do with their portfolio or not, and ask me all sorts of questions. But uh, so it's a very rewarding part of what we do at Veritas and what we do in our business. But
Can I
you
bring up
know,
another subject as long as we're
sure,
kind of jumping? And you and this comes to mind as we continue to talk about what we're talking about right now. What about this no talk rule that so many people have grown up with, where they just cannot discuss openly the subject of finances? Now you're in
yeah.
getting into a touchy area that people back away from, and this
Well,
coaching
there
part of it
is
is
there.
what I
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. The no talk rule is what we call this part of our social structure
Mhm.
that we kind of many of us grew up in, uh,
I
and that
did.
is that it's not polite. It's not polite to ask someone about their income, or it's not polite to ask them, to make note of the new car they got, or all sorts of things. Rather than being free around the subject of money and investing and what it is, people are constrained. So anything that constrains you owns you. This is the thing to get about this. And it's not that we should all be nosing into other people's business. However, because we are so constrained, even within our families, even spouse
Yes.
to spouse, it's
Yes.
like worse than talking about sex. They'd
Or
much rather talk
religion
about their sexual life than they would about their money life.
or
Interesting.
religion or
Um,
politics. Same thing. Yeah.
yeah. So it is something to think about. It's something to realize that if you grew up or are in that world and you're very constrained, anything that constrains you owns you.
Yeah.
Think about that.
What made me think of it,
It
Margaret, was
owns you. Yeah,
you mentioned being coachable, that some
yeah.
clients become coachable. Maybe they don't start out being coachable, but they become coachable, especially once they have a coach like yourself
Well,
and the way you
yeah.
do
Think about
business at
going to a
Veritas.
doctor and getting an examination. I mean, if you're not willing to expose
Right.
what
Right.
needs to be exposed, you might not get a good. You may have a disease you don't even know about.
Exactly.
You might
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
So it's pretty important to be open and honest. First of all, with yourself and your spouse, and of course, to find someone in the industry who will be confidential and really be on your side, not
Right.
selling you stuff, but actually thinking about what's in your best interest. And I'm going to
Yeah.
make a statement. I don't think anyone who's on this in the brokerage industry or in the typical default um, industry, whether they're good hearted or not, that's not the question. Then most of them, I would say, are good hearted. They want to do the right thing, but what they don't know is that the products and the things that they are selling are not necessarily in the best interest
Hmm.
of those people.
Right.
If they're
Right.
not applying the science of investing, it's
You know,
hard. I'm hard pressed to say they're doing the best for the client.
we talked a little bit about the media and the role the media plays in people's lives and their biases and their
Mhm.
habits and so forth. One of the things I'm seeing touted today, and it's almost relentless how they tout it, is the buying of gold and precious metal. Every other commercial today, I swear, it seems like it's pushing gold, pushing gold. And I
Yeah.
think they do that out of people's fear, the fear
Yes.
that money
Well,
will lose value
you
and
if
go
you watch
away.
if you watch the commercials for gold and silver, you'll see it fluctuates between fear, selling it
Mhm.
on fear,
Yes, it
and
does.
selling it on
Yes.
greed.
Right.
Because if gold is going up, then they'll start touting how much it's going up. Here's what Eugene Fama is one of the academic uh, uh, gentlemen who at the University of Chicago, a PhD, uh,
Nobel Prize
educator,
winner?
Nobel Prize winner, came up with both the efficient market hypothesis and part of the factor modeling. So he is part of that science. Okay, we have an interview with him in that 2 day seminar, and what
Yes.
he says about gold and commodities in general is that it is not a good diversifier. It is not a hedge against inflation. And he's quite adamant about it. How can something be a hedge against inflation when it has such high volatility,
Yes.
tremendous amount of volatility, and only makes, on average, about what inflation is? So, it really is not what it's being sold as. And that's part of that, what I call the pollution of the investment industry. That, they put things on TV, in magazines, out into the public, and gurus talk about it, make themselves sound really smart, but they're not, and it's
Mhm.
not the truth. It's a total lie. It's deceitful, and it
It's good.
misleads people, and people really do lose lots of money on it.
It's
So
good for
they lose
jewelry,
their
Margaret.
resources.
It's good
It's
for
good for
jewelry.
jewelry.
I love it.
Yes, I love gold jewelry, and lots of good uses for gold
Yeah.
and silver and all sorts of things. It doesn't make it a good investment. There are asset classes that make much better. And the same is true for real estate. Real estate can be a good business. Real estate can, most of us own too much real estate.
Right.
But
Right.
anyway, now we're getting into the weeds, I think, a little bit. But if you want to know more about what does work and what
No, I
doesn't
just wanted
work,
to bring it up because I
yeah,
felt it was one of those driving fear things that
yeah,
I I see so much of it coming, and it usually comes big at times when there's lots of turmoil going on around the world.
right. Because people want
Yeah.
a quick and easy answer.
Yeah.
They want
Right.
something they can rely on, and that's how it's sold to them. I
Well,
just
listen,
say to
we've
people,
we
well, remember, they're exchanging your dollars for their gold.
we've covered a lot of bases
And
today, and
yes,
I'd like to come back and keep talking because there's so much it differentiates the default world from the scientific world. And I think we
yeah, I'd like
there's
to just end with this image, and that is, if
Mhm.
you're a fish in the polluted water and you'd like a breath of fresh air, keep
Yes.
listening,
Okay.
keep
That's a
learning,
that's a
seek the truth
good
of investment.
medicine to leave with today. I like that, Margaret. So, and thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and I'm enjoying these conversations so much. I'm learning, always learning, and I think the folks that are watching will also have their eyes opened up and see clearly too. So, okay, all right. Thank you so much.
I can see clear